Welcome to the show, man. Listen, I'm so excited to have you on the show. You've done a lot. You've accomplished a lot. And I was just telling the people before you came on that you are the United States Department of the department's first cultural ambassador for hip hop. You are a pioneering artist in hip hop education, theater, diplomacy, and you have been to 48 different countries, which I think it's amazing. You know, it's just important to travel, and I think that's something we don't talk about enough. Right. But you also have this new meditation series called Just Breathe, a hip hop meditation project. And guys, you can support it. Go to her Instagram at Toni Blackman. Go over there, and actually there is a GoFundMe. GoFundMe. And you can make direct donations on her site, on her Instagram page. Now, one of the things we were talking about before we had issues with the connection was just the beginning of Just Breathe and how that got started. And if you could take us back to that very briefly. Right.
That started in Nairobi, Kenya. And it's just so symbolic of my path, my journey. Like so many of the dope ideas and my new beginnings in the last 20 years happened on the continent.
Right.
The sun feeds me, the soil feeds me, the soul of the folk feed me.
I love it. I love it. Talk about this. What's the vision with that? When you started that, what were you trying to accomplish with that? What were you trying to get out of that?
When I first started doing the hip hop meditation, mindfulness, like being intentional, because it's always been a part of my work with Freestyle Union, where I'm like a girl, it's cipher work. Yeah. When I got intentional about it, part of it was because I was making stuff for me.
Yeah.
I'm one of those creatives who, in order to sustain myself and maintain my sanity and peace of mind, I have to do a lot of inner work on a consistent basis. I had a lot of healing to do, from post-slavery trauma, working class blues, my upbringing, certain aspects of my family life, my parents, and that sort of stuff. And so I used to listen to, I still do, I listen to spiritual teachers from every faith. Yeah. I listen to new age thought leaders. I listen to motivational thought leaders. And I wanted to put it in a hip hop format.
Yeah.
An idea I had in 1998, but I wasn't bold enough to narrow my focus there. And I'm just grateful that I've had people come on my path who encouraged me.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, there's something you've been doing. I've been keeping tabs, following that. Is this new lyrical meditation cipher? It's a podcast that you have on. If you could talk about that and what people should look to get from that, and how can we tap in?
Yeah, well, lyrical meditation cipher started out as just like a venting circle where I just wanted MCs, poets, singers to gather, and we were meeting on Clubhouse every Sunday to freestyle on different things like grief, fear, the emotions we were feeling at the peak of the pandemic. And then a friend of mine, he was like, yo, this is your podcast. Because I've been trying to formulate a podcast for years now. He's like, no, this is the podcast. So it took us about 4 or 5 months to figure out the format, because we were only giving it attention on Sundays. And then I had to coach some of the artists, just about, everybody's not a natural on audio only. Some people were like, what is this? Yeah. And we finally have a product now. We're getting episodes edited. We recorded on Clubhouse. Yeah. And we have music and co-hosts. And I am really, really excited about the mission is to take universal spiritual principles and to package it in a format that is entertaining. It's in the spirit of KRS-One, entertainment, and it's a continuum of everything I've always done.
Yeah. Now, I wanted you to touch on this new book that you have out, The Wisdom of the Cipher.
It's not out yet. I just gave it to my editor.
No, I'm saying it's coming out. It's not out yet, right?
It's coming out, yes.
Yeah. It's not out yet.
2022.
Yeah, it's 2022. But and I don't know how much you can share with us on that.
I've been talking about this book for years.
Right.
So I've been talking about it.
one of the things that I thought was really interesting about it is talks about this merger between spiritual insights from years of creating platforms of hip hop, which is something I don't think is talked about enough when you talk about hip hop. And I want you to touch on that, spirituality and hip hop. I don't think we
Well,
make that connection
it's
enough.
not discussed enough, and
Yeah,
it's a shame because the hip hop heads that I know, like
yeah,
Stacey Epps, who is a dope MC, vocalist, and entertainment attorney, like has a deep spiritual foundation.
yeah,
If you think about the word cipher comes from 5%ers,
yeah,
a sect of Islam that a lot of hip hop heads in the 90s embraced as they were seeking something other than the church,
yeah,
other than what we were raised on. You think about the inspirational principles. A
yeah,
lot of it is rooted in what Iyanla Van Zant preached and Louise Hay and a lot of MCs. This is why 90s hip hop was so dope. A lot of MCs were doing the artist way.
mm,
They were reading Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain. Well, actually, they were reading.
yeah.
Rappers read books.
I was going to say,
and they didn't have to go to college.
Right.
They didn't have to go. I knew many MCs who worked for Verizon or the post office, and they're smart, intelligent, intellectual beings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Let me get off. I was getting ready to go on my soapbox.
No. But listen, I love that because what you raised an important point that I was gonna ask you, because I think that there's been a shift in hip hop. And I want you, when I talk to hip hop heads, I really want them to kind of chime in on why that shift, because now I feel like hip hop is more so materialistic. At what point and why do you think that shift happened, to where we're at now?
Well, I think a lot of hip hop scholars can articulate this much better than I, and a lot of it has to do with the industry, the music industrial complex, and the powers that be who they found an easier way to make money at the expense of Black lives and Black mental health, and no one cared.
Yeah,
and we striving for riches.
Mm.
And the Western definition of success, a lot of us sold out for the dollar. And there's a lot of arguments about this. I've been on so many panels where people debate this, people walk out angry. But at the end of the day, I've always said this. I even wrote an essay about this in Dr. Julius Bailey's book, The Jay-Z Reader.
Yeah.
As we see Jay-Z stepping into he's put his philanthropic crown on. And I said this long ago that he had it within him. Yeah. Right? But it's like there are so many others. You don't need to be a billionaire to be a philanthropist.
Mm.
You don't.
Yeah.
You don't need to be wealthy to be a philanthropist.
Yeah.
To be a humanitarian, to care about humanity, to care about community, to care about your people. And the spiritual health of the folk that you come from. Yeah. And there's something that happened along the way. Yeah. Something that happened where we lost. And part of it, I mean, this gets so complex where I don't even feel like I have the knowledge base. I know so many smart people to truly discuss it in a way. But like there's a lot of folks who left the church. Mm. Right? Yeah. So when you leave the church, right, then what is your spiritual source? Mm. So there are a lot of people who are seeking. There's folks who grew up in Islam and didn't know which way to go, right? Yeah. So what do you do? Mm. Where do people go? What are they learning? Where are they growing? Where are we gathering collectively? Yeah. Right. And so I think there was taboo if you were raised in a certain religion to discuss any other religion. And now I think what's happened is people have evolved where I know people who were raised in Islam and listen to gospel music, I know people who were raised in the church and practice Ramadan. And some people may call that confusion. I call that wisdom. Mm. You take what works for you. Yeah. Right? And you apply it and you live it righteously.
Yeah. Which brings me back to this question about is there one way, you know?
And I totally don't think so.
Okay.
I don't. I think there are many routes. There's a meme that talks about there are many routes to God. I don't know how it's
Yeah.
worded. There
Yeah.
are many routes to get to God. It's not only one way. And I feel
Yeah.
so sorry for the people
Yeah.
who get upset because they hear someone use the word universe.
Mm.
So now you've disrupted your peace.
Yeah.
Because this sister right here used the word universe instead
Even
of Jesus.
even someone saying, I'm spiritual.
Yes,
That people have an
yes,
issue with that. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm like, liberate yourself.
Yeah.
If you feel threatened by that,
Right.
then there is something wrong with your spiritual foundation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. And the other thing too is like my mentality has always been live and let live. You know what I'm saying?
And,
Like,
and
and even one of the things when we started talking about this faith being over that faith, and when you look at the people that are supposed to be the leaders of this faith, whether it's the Bible or whatever it
yeah,
is, they didn't necessarily. They were more so. Give you an example. If you talk about Jesus, like from what we saw, he was someone who was loving and accepting of everybody. You know what I'm saying? And I just think it's interesting how we've allowed this
yes,
desire,
yes, yes. Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
I dealt with so many familial struggles coming up,
Yeah,
particularly after I left home around that, because
yeah,
my family had a church, and my late uncle, may he rest in peace,
right,
just was so challenged
right.
with understanding that. And I remember in some of our debates slash arguments, I would point out, Jesus loved the hoes,
Sure
the
did.
drug
Yes, he did.
dealers, the
Yeah,
cheaters, the
yeah.
people in prison.
Mhm.
Jesus loved everybody.
Right,
And if you look at how you deal with people,
right,
that shows how Christ-like you really are.
right.
Your road rage says something about you.
Yeah,
You getting mad because your daughter's fiance is Muslim says
yeah.
something about you, because
Mm.
I always say God is love.
Yeah,
That's what God is. And if you're not living love,
yeah.
are you really living God?
Hmm.
You know?
Wow. Yeah, say that one more time. So you gotta say that one more time, because I might have to tweet that.
If you're not living love, are you living God?
Wow.
Are you
Yeah.
living God?
Yeah. Now that's amazing. And I think everyone needs to hear that. And I think that's where we need to get to as a people, where you can live and let live. And
Yes.
that even ties into everything that's going on right now with cancel
Right.
culture and all of those things where people are not allowed to disagree.
Yes.
Like if I don't agree with whatever it is that you're doing, it means that I have an issue with you. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like just because I love you means I have to be in agreement with everything that you're doing. I'm like, where they do that at? Like, our
See, but
parents,
you know
that's
what that is? That's called spiritual immaturity,
right.
right? Because the spiritually mature live in love, and so regardless of what this this is my brother, this is my cousin, this
Yeah,
is my classmate from high
yeah,
school.
yeah,
So just because we think differently doesn't mean that I have to hate this person, despise this person, or reject this person.
yeah, yeah. And I want you to touch on that because you're someone who has traveled the world.
Yeah.
I want you to speak to how can we get to a place where we really get to love people before judging them. I feel like we spend a lot of time judging people. I think Maya Angelou said something to the effect of we actually have more similarities than differences. We're
Yes.
more alike than we're unalike.
Yes.
And I want you to speak to how can we as a people, whether it's in the Black community, whether it's all over the world, being that you travel the world, you've seen a lot of things, how can we get to that point where we really start to love people and not have preconceived notions? Because a lot of these things were things we're conditioned with, that we grew up with. Like, how can we get to that point where we break free from that?
Well, I think one of my biggest lower self challenges was judgment,
Yeah.
and I think I judged the most when I was the most fearful. And as I started to heal my fear and release my fear, I had less of a need to judge.
So there's a connection between fear and judging people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, like your fear of being seen, your fear of being found out. And when we look at the people who judge the harshest online, those people often don't have profile pictures. And those people, or if they do have a profile pictures,
right,
it's often a questionable presentation.
Yeah.
This is me trying not to judge them, right?
Right.
But I'm judging. Right. And I'm judging because humans judge, right?
Right.
And, but there's that space. But I also think in terms of the universal thing that you're talking about in terms of non-judgment, it's about I think that COVID really hurts us in the sense that people can't travel as freely as we did before.
Yeah.
And so we're not getting the opportunity. Some folks are not able to get the opportunities to. Yeah. I just think it's so important to experience other cultures, to have new experiences, to go places where you're ignorant and you know nothing. Yeah. To be in places where you don't know the language. Being in a place where you don't speak the language is imperative. Yeah. Particularly for people in North America, in the U.S.
Do you think North America, like being in America, you think there's more close-mindedness than the places that you've been to?
Definitely.
But isn't that the irony of it? Because if this is supposed to be one of the greatest nations in the world, and you're part of being that is that you're supposed to be aware of everything that's going on around you. I think of even within the realm of the African kings. If you were like a great king, not only were you known by people, you also knew people. But I just think it's kind of the opposite. Like you're supposed to be the world, the world power, or one of the world powers, but the people are not very aware. What you think that's something in the educational system or what?
Well, come on now, it's the education system. You can just look at the way they're blocking critical race theory. Critical race theory is just American history. It's just the truth. And so the way they're blocking it and they don't want it taught, the being glued to ignorance. Yeah. Pridefully ignorant. Yeah. And I don't know if that's ignorance. I think there's some evil dipped into that. Ooh. When you want to be pridefully ignorant, the root of that has something to do with evil intentions, right?
Wow. Like it's one thing to not know. It's another thing to be proud about you not knowing. And thinking, and I've always said this, I can accept people that don't know and people who ask questions to know. The people I can't stand are the ones who don't know, but they talk like they know.
And they don't want anybody else to know.
Right.
That's where the evil comes in.
Yeah.
God forbid.
Now, Toni, you've done a lot of things, man. Guys, y'all really need to check out what Toni has done a lot of stuff. I would say go to her YouTube, spend some time on her page. She's done a lot of things. I want to talk about the music for a minute because you've been on the stage with the likes of Erica Producer, a lot of people you've been on the stage with. I want to ask you, when was that moment that did you ever feel like, I can't believe this is happening? Was there a moment who was that artist that you were with and you felt, I can't believe that I'm on the stage with so-and-so? Did you ever have that moment?
I think that one time because I was so inspired by Miss Badu. I was so inspired, and I remember Cellist Rhymes was producing the show at Lincoln Theater. He was from Dallas. Yeah. So I guess that's how he got the link up. And I opened for her, and when I was on stage coughing and I needed water. Yeah. And no one brought me water, and I kept asking for water. And then I looked to the stage and somebody was holding water, and it was her. It was her holding the water. And that's when I was just like, oh snap, like this is like for real. Yeah. But I think I have maybe 2 MCs that I've gotten geeked over. Okay. One I know, so I won't say it publicly because my friends always tease me because I'm a fan / groupie. Right. And then, but the other one, I lost my speech. I was at a loss for words for. It was Def Poetry Jam. I was nervous as hell. I didn't do the piece I wanted to do. I followed my advisor's advice. I did the wrong piece, so I didn't kill it, right? But I did do this one piece, and then when I came off stage, I heard this voice. That was nice, sweetheart. That was really nice, queen. And it was Rakim. And I was just like a foolish nerd, like,
yeah. Wow.
And he looked at me like, what's wrong with her?
Right. Oh, man.
I was like,
that's amazing.
He's talking to me.
Yeah.
He's talking to me. So that's the only time I've been shook.
Toni, talk to us about other things you have going on, because you're a consultant. You host a lot of workshops and things like that. Mm-hmm. If people wanted to get at you, you know, say, I want you to come to my business, like, you know, what are some of the services you offer? Like, you know, say, for instance, I have a small business and, you know, coaching. Talk to us about some of the services you offer in the corporate space and that sort of thing.
Well, right now I have 2 clients where I'm doing creative consultation to help them develop their story and their content. One is with a major restaurant chain. Yeah. And what he's creating a pitch for the executives to tell the story, because he's been with the company for 25 years and he wants to tell the stories of the employees, and he's working on developing his own coming to America story, his immigrant story of the American dream. And so I do work like that, but I also, Kathleen Adams set up a workshop for me this summer. I was in Senegal and I was able to do, because I'm consulting work via Zoom, and I did a hip hop meditation workshop for an advertising, a large advertising agency and their staff. And so that's the kind of, like, I do what I do, which is my signature cipher workshop, my hip hop meditation workshop, teaching my freestyle workshop where I use freestyle rap and improvisational poetry to teach impromptu speaking.
Okay.
And now so that's what I do.
If they wanted to get at you, they can contact you at Toni Blackman booking at gmail.com.
Yeah, Toni Blackman
booking at gmail.com. Okay, cool. Sounds good. And guys, you can get her on Instagram now.
And then I also, you know, Kwame Alexander, the award-winning children's author, pulled me in to work on the pilot for his Disney series. His award-winning book, The Crossover, he got a deal with Disney. George Tillman directed it, and they hired me to be the spoken word / rap coach.
That is crazy.
I know. So I've been doing, it's crazy because I was like, wait, like, this is what I do.
Yeah.
I've been doing that for 30 years. Like, this is what I do. And I was doing it a lot.
I'm not new to this.
I'm not new to this. And so I was nervous because it was high level. I was coaching A-list actors, children actors, but they're A-list actors. And George Tillman was there in the sessions. But it went so well. And it gave me, I give thanks. People like Kwame, like, you find out who your people are. Joel Gottler, intellectual property lawyer and agent in Hollywood. I had lunch with him years ago. I wasn't ready, but I got a lunch with him. And he gave me some advice. And first he told me which book was my money book. And to call him when I was ready to write that one. Okay. And then he also said, he was like, look, kiddo, friends get you checks. If your friends are not getting you checks, your friends in this business, they're not your friends.
Ooh.
And so it's just like, I've just made note and to push perspective, because I have, whenever I had opportunity, like it's just my nature to give and to share my platform and share with people. But there are people who will look at you, build with you, be inspired by you, and never, ever mention your name in a room. And that is part of my maturing that I've gone through the past 3 or 4 years, just moving to a space of acceptance. And accepting that I've got to put blinders on. Stacey Jordan, the life coach, talks about that. Just focusing and doing what it is that you do. And to stop worrying about those people.
Toni, I want to ask you, because you touched on something, and it's just something I've been thinking about the past couple of weeks. It's just forgiveness. I posted something a while ago on my social media about, where I'm at now. I'm just learning to like forgive and to let stuff go because I know where God is taking me, and I can't let
Yeah.
somebody else's negative energy mess up what God has for me.
Yeah.
And the reality is that sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's tough. Like, you have every reason to hold a grudge, especially when it comes from someone that you trusted or that you
Yes.
have different expectations. How do you move? Because I think that people say, oh, forgiven, but let's be real. Like, how do you even begin the process, the practical steps to even let go,
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing you have to do is recognize how not letting go costs. Right? Not letting go can block blessings, can block opportunities, can block ideas, can block your flow.
Yeah.
Not letting go hurts us more than it hurts them.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's the other thing. And so that self-liberation, like it's about freedom.
Yeah.
Now, forgetting, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Like, forgetting takes time. Forgetting may or may never, it might not ever happen. But forgiving is crucial so that we can travel light. So that we walk into the room, there's nothing on our shoulders. There are no bricks on our back. People are asking me, like, why are you so light? You're aging in reverse. You're this and that. Because I'm light.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? If I say fuck you, it's not like an angry fuck you. It's like a fuck it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Fuck you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm over here. That's like God speaking.
Right.
If I'm saying it, you know what I mean? Now, there was someone recently I need to say, like, but I didn't say it. But but it's like how do we live our lives where, and then understanding that forgiveness is a daily act. So there are some people you have to forgive them every day until you're forgiven.
Absolutely.
And then there's some you think you've forgiven them, and then they show up with their stank aura. Yeah. And then you find yourself getting that screw face. You haven't forgiven them yet.
So do you love from a distance? Like, if someone always keeps stepping on your toes, like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Okay.
It's learning how to love from a distance and learning and accepting that you may never get the apology that you want. Yeah. And then also loving from a distance and knowing that as you free yourself, a lot of those people are going to come back and act like nothing happened.
That's the thing, though. Like, how
like
do
they
you
never did anything?
Because I'll be honest with you, Toni, I can't deal with that because I'm the type of person, and I'm still growing through that. But I'm the type of person, like, if you say, for instance, you ghosted me, you gave me a silent, whatever it is that happened, you can't come back and act like it's all copacetic, everything is good, because I'm the type of person to be like, I didn't forget. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because how do you even sometimes you have to have a completion conversation. Okay. Like in landmark training, in the landmark education, they talk about having completion conversations. So sometimes you actually have to have a completion conversation, and sometimes that conversation needs to be preceded by a clearing. So you have a clearing with someone who can walk you through what not to say. Wow. Someone you trust. Yeah. Who knows you. Say, look, I need to say, and then we're like, no, don't say that. Don't say that. Right. Yeah. And sometimes you got to bullet point it out. Like, you got to know yourself. And then there's some people, I'm not talking to you, girl. Because if I do, I'm going to cuss you out. So but I'll write. I'll write. Right. Yeah. And sometimes you write it out and you don't even have to share it with them. But I went through a really deep betrayal in August. So wait, when you say before you write what you're going to say to them, but you never say it. Okay. Yeah. But because once you write it, it's out. Okay. Like, that happens a lot of times, one of my coach friends, she was like, oh, don't send her the letter, just write it out. But I'm like, no, she's clueless. She keeps circling back. She needs to see what this is. So like, I'm a retentive Virgo. So I can bullet point. Yeah. Because all of the things you did. And that's only, sometimes the bullet points help them get clear, because you can't assume that people know what they did wrong. And that's the thing for me, like, I'm not the type of person to say, I wish that something bad happens to you because what you did to me. My thing has always been, I just wish that somewhere in your heart, in the silence of the night, when you're by yourself in your house, that you can acknowledge what you did. That's it. If you can just acknowledge that you were wrong, like 9 out of 10 times, that's all I'd be asking. Because to your point, people come back like, and nothing happened. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me you forgot what you did?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes that's all I ask. I just wish that people would acknowledge what they did. You know what I'm saying? And you know what? I was wrong. I did totally wrong.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But that's where the spiritual wisdom comes in, because a lot of people will never acknowledge it.
Yeah.
They will just never acknowledge it. And so you have to live your life and free yourself, and to let it go. And here's the thing. There are some people who will never acknowledge it. And then 10, 15, 20 years later, that same person is the plug. That person is like I have two people, like this past year, I was surprised that these folks were like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, so I just said thank you.
Yeah.
They never ever. And so I was kind of side-eyeing, you know.
You think they were doing that because they felt bad? That there's their way of kind of redeeming themselves.
Yeah, I mean, give people space to repent.
Okay.
You know, allow people space to repent. That doesn't mean you have to have brunch with them.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to key on the phone like you did back in the day.
Yeah.
While you were in undergrad. It doesn't mean any of that, you know.
But should we have that conversation though? You think the conversation should be had when they come back? You think it's necessary to talk about what happened?
Not always.
Okay.
Some stuff you just like, oh.
Yeah.
And that's part of the journey. That's part of the journey of life success. Yeah. Being successful in life, being happy in life, being peace-filled in life, and getting over ourselves and our ego. For me, I've been able to go all the way in because so many people have died since, July of 2018. That's when the death started. And so I lost count of the number of people. It's over 34. And so I stopped counting.
It's amazing you raised that point, because I have some words here that I'm going to mention these words, and I want you to talk about what comes to mind, or maybe how these words, come up in your life, One of the ones I have here was strength, because, you've lost a lot, you know what I'm saying? And I remember when we met in New York, we're filming, you talked about just all the people that you lost during, the pandemic and everything. And strength, how do you find strength to keep going?
I don't even see it as strength. I see it. I know people use the word strength and they say strong, but I think it has more. For me, it's faith. It's just faith.